Picture the most famous crusader of them all, Richard the Lionheart, storming the walls of Acre, sword flashing, lions on his surcoat rippling like they're alive. You'd expect him to go out in the same key, charging a Saracen line, maybe yelling something poetic in Old French. Nope. The man who terrified kings died because of a tiff over a few bags of coins and one very lucky teenager with a crossbow. Stick around. This is the story history class forgot to mention. For most of the 1190s, Richard did his best to convince all Europe that God had an English accent. At Acre, he'd wriggled through collapsed tunnels. At Arsuf, he'd screamed down the plain with his knights in a charge so fierce even Saladin's elite peeled aside. He wore chainmail like a second skin, slept on the ground, and, if you believe the bards, once ate an actual lion's heart to prove the nickname wasn't just marketing. By 1192, he was living folklore. Taller than average, copper-red hair, a grin quick as his blade. Trouble was, he was also flat broke and technically a fugitive. Leopold of Austria had clapped him in irons over a slight, and back home little brother John was busy redrawing the kingdom's borders. Richard landed in England long enough to forgive John, sort of. Empty the treasury again and remind the Scots who was boss. Then it was straight back to France, where Philip II had pinched half his lands. For the next 5 years, Richard fought a slow, nasty border war. Hedge by hedge, castle by castle. The kind of thing that never makes the songs. It's March 1199. Richard's 41, still built like the trebuchet he's about to use. But now the joints creak and the scars have scars. He's chasing down a minor rebel, Lord Aymar of Lusignan, who's hiding in a poky fortress called Chalus-Chabrol. Rumor says Aymar's dug up some long-lost Roman gold and is using it to hire every mercenary who owns a rusty sword. Richard wants the money and the apology. So he rocks up with maybe 200 knights and the usual swarm of cooks, clerks, and hangers-on. The morning of the 25th, they set up a mangonel and toss a few stones just to annoy the garrison. The defenders reply with crossbow quarrels and the sort of French insults that would make a sailor blush. Standard Tuesday afternoon stuff. Afternoon heat, tempers fraying. Richard doesn't bother with the full mail shirt. Too sweaty, too small a target. He's wandering the line in an old leather jerkin, steel cap tipped back, confidence cranked to 11. One defender steps up on the wall, raises his crossbow, and lets fly. The bolt smacks into Richard's left shoulder, high up near the collarbone. He blinks, looks down at the shaft like someone's passed him a rude note, yanks it free. Blood fountains. A surgeon is yelled for. Richard shrugs. Barely a scratch, boys, and strolls back to his tent. Problem is, the quarrel's been pulled out of a corpse first, all rust and rot. By nightfall, the shoulder's blown up like a wineskin. By morning, he can't lift his sword arm. Medieval medicine, equal parts prayer, red wine, and red-hot irons. Master Milo the surgeon has a go at all three. He pokes around, can't find the arrowhead, declares infection a sign from God, and switches to plan B, packing the wound with barley and honey. Richard's fever flares, then ebbs, then flares again. He keeps issuing orders, laughing through cracked lips, insisting the siege must go on. The flesh around the wound turns the color of overripe plums. Gangrene sets in like a landlord who's decided to stay. Then they drag in the shooter, call him Pierre, call him Peter, call him that kid. The story shifts depending on who's telling. Some say Richard's men torched his family farm years back. Others swear the garrison promised the boy a purse he never saw. Whatever the truth, he's hauled in front of the dying king. Richard, propped on cushions and pale as candle wax, listens. After a long silence, he says, "Live, lad. Tell your children I forgave you." The same man who'd once hanged prisoners in batches couldn't bring himself to kill a terrified teenager. By Palm Sunday, Richard knows the math. He won't see Easter. Word gallops to his mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, who rides like the wind itself to reach him. When she arrives, he's drifting in and out, calling for friends, doling out coins to servants, begging forgiveness for every promise he ever bent until it broke. On the 6th of April, 1199, with Eleanor gripping his right hand, Richard exhales one last time. A chronicler wrote that he sighed as a man lays down a burden too heavy for any soul. Medieval logistics didn't end with death. Richard's body is split 3 ways. The guts, first to rot, are planted at Chalus, an apology to the villagers for the mess. His heart goes north to Rouen Cathedral, the symbolic heart of his duchy. The embalmed corpse travels west to Fontevraud Abbey to lie beside his father, Henry II. Even in death, the king can't resist being in 3 places at once. And here's the kicker. The greatest warrior of the age, the man who charged lance points for breakfast, was taken out by a lone kid with a rusty bow on a forgotten hill. Chroniclers tried to spruce it up, claimed the wound reopened during a skirmish with bandits, or blamed a Saracen assassin in disguise. The boring, painful truth got politely buried under better stories. After all, myths sell better than mortality. If you've ever wondered how the mightiest heroes can meet the shabbiest ends, hit subscribe. We dig up the tales textbooks leave out. Drop a comment. Would you rather your legend be a beautiful lie or a drab fact? Richard's epitaph could read, "He conquered empires, lost to one bad Tuesday." The terrible end of Richard the Lionheart isn't a blast of glory. It's a quiet reminder that greatness has no armor against bad luck, dirty metal, or the small, stubborn numbers of infection. The fiercest king of his century died because he stood half a foot too far left. There's something almost fair about it. On death's battlefield, everyone fights with the same weapon.